Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan, another Inside the Birds, and we are getting closer to the NFL draft. Very excited, and I got to give Adam credit. He came up with a great idea for this podcast. So what we're going to do, because we're getting a lot of questions, what are the Eagles going to do at 22, assuming that they stay at 22, but what are they looking at? What are they going to do? So what Adam thought was a good idea, and I agree we're going to do, is do a mini first round mock draft right now. And we're going to go do the first 22 picks and make it the Eagles pick. And the goal of that, Adam, will essentially be we're not striving for 100% accuracy here. It's stupid. Nobody cares. Nobody can ever be accurate. But what it does is gives us, based on the intel that we have of guys we were going to go, right?
Yep.
Gives us a good idea of what cluster of players we're looking at when we arrive at pick number 22 for the Eagles. And that's really the best way we can go about kind of answering that question of who's going to be around, Adam. Or
100% why we're doing this. The only reason why we're doing this, we want to give you an idea of why they would trade up or trade down based on who's going to be left. I've got the team needs down. I've known a lot on this area of what teams are looking for in terms of positional needs for months, but getting the player ready is next to impossible. You know, if someone like you or I are doing mock draft, if you get like 8 right, you're doing well. But nevertheless, we'll go over kind of what these teams are looking for, what their needs are, and why. Just to set this up, I think it's going to be tough for the Eagles to stay at 22 and get perhaps the corner that they would want, the edge rusher they would want. I think it's going to be tough, but not impossible.
Absolutely. So I look forward to doing this exercise and sort of seeing at the cluster that we arrive in, and it gives us a good idea of what things might look like in the future, which is really right around the corner. What is the first? Is it the 21st? That is that Thursday? I always forget the
25th.
No, is that 25th? Right.
Yes.
So it's basically 2 weeks away. It is 2 weeks away, and we're excited.
Or actually 2 weeks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
2 weeks from tonight. Holy smokes. Yeah.
I know.
Where's the time gone? It's kind of scared. Fact. Okay, so this coming Wednesday is the last day for pre-draft visits, and you can't time anyone, you can't test anyone, no medical, nothing. It's all got to be done now. As far as the workouts, they used to let the clubs work out players up to 24 hours before the draft. We'll look into that. We'll check with the league on that, but yeah, you've got it. In fact, there's a running joke because the players have to be out of your building by 11:59 Eastern. If you're an East Coast team, and obviously 2:50, well, whatever, wherever time zone they're in, they got to be out by midnight on Wednesday. So there's a mad rush. And some teams, by the way, the Vikings have their visit day. They used to, under Rick Spielman, either bring half of the players in or all 30 visits in one day. I don't know why. Next time we have Rick on, we have to ask him, why did you guys do that? That was so bizarre.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That is bizarre.
Yeah.
Would like to have a better understanding of that one.
Yeah.
That's good. You talk about the pro days, the workouts. Andrew Checo has been all over that. He was also with us for our live stream last night for our Patreon members, our Ask ITB live stream. We did 2 weeks straight or 2 weeks in a row, 2 Wednesdays. Andrew did a great job. Plus, Andrew's been doing an awesome job of the draft dreams episode series that he's been doing for a couple of weeks now. He's had some really good interviews with some really good prospects who just aren't household names, but are either going to be drafted or be priority free agents for teams. They'll be in camps, some really interesting personalities. So I would really encourage checking them out, especially the one on the Utah safety, Sione Vaki, who also played running back. How often do you see a safety who also plays running back in the same season?
Never.
And worked out at his pro day for Joe Casper, the Eagles safeties coach, and did wide receiver and punt return drills. So it was a really fascinating interview.
Wow.
Andrew's just kicking him out. He's got about 4, 5, 6 more coming before the end. So again, our Patreon, if you want to be to get into our Patreon membership where we do these Ask ITB live streams, and we're relaunching to do even more, it's patreon.com/inside the birds. Adam's been doing a great job of getting all the updated contract info for our free agents. I think you had the Avonte Maddox and the Tyler Hall contracts were the most recent ones, right? That you had up there.
We have every single free agent contract is up there. We got them.
Nice.
We got Avonte's like 24 hours after, so we got that up. We'll get Mailata's breakdown soon. We'll put that up there. We'll explain what it means. And by the way, not Avonte. Devontae Smith is next. They're going to want to get that done before his fifth-year options due. Not that they would be a problem. They would obviously pick it up, but they're working towards getting it done. We know that they're the one team that does it. I don't know why other teams don't do it like this. Since Joe Banner came in, the Joe Banner rule, the league had enough of the agents complaining for that that players would extend contracts for 2 years, and they felt like the clubs got the advantage, so it wound up being 3 years. But the bottom line is, when it comes to contracts, the Eagles are the only team that is, I don't want to say insistent. Nobody extends players when the first year they're allowed to, like the Eagles. It's just, I don't know why. Other teams will do extensions, but some teams wait longer than others. But no one gets them done faster than the Eagles do.
Yeah, you don't like the Dallas Cowboys approach of just waiting to the last minute and then having to make everybody the highest paid player at their position?
And by the way, if you could go back, for those of you who are old enough to remember, and I know it's funny because I know in our live streams we've had some people who, believe it or not, grew up as Cowboys fans and then became Eagles fans. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You might remember, if you're old enough, you probably have to be in your late 40s, early 50s at least, when Jerry Jones stupidly did not get Emmitt Smith's contract done. Emmitt held out and he backed up the Brinks truck because they got off to a bad start and Emmitt had leverage, and he signed late into the season. So before you could really find play, he might have been a free agent. I don't remember the exact scenario. It was around like 93 or 94. But on your point, Jerry historically, who's the general manager and owner, waits way too long. Then he winds up paying more than they should. I don't know why he does this. It's really dumb.
Yeah. Then he had to once cut to Marcus Ware, who still had gas left in the tank, went to Denver and won a Super Bowl there. I mean, that was, one of the stranger. Well, that's just how the Dallas Cowboys operate. No, enough about the Cowboys.
Yep.
All right. Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. We have a few news and notes before we get into our mini mock draft. One of them, and I talked about it last podcast, now it's officially out, our survey. We're asking people to please take a few minutes to take part in our survey. It's on all of our Twitter accounts or X accounts. It's on our website. You can access it there. It's on our newsletter. If you get our newsletter, it just takes a few minutes. And what it really does is it helps us understand what you like about Inside Birds, about the experience, what you want to see more of, what we can provide more of. And on top of what you think we can do better. And then also part of this is what you might be willing to pay for if you were a Patreon member and you wanted to prioritize certain content. So really, to borrow a line from Jerry Maguire, it helps us help you because we want to be able to serve you better. So please take a minute to fill out the survey. And what we're doing is, and we've already got a bunch. I want to thank a lot. We have a ton of surveys already taken. So I appreciate that. And I know this because what I've asked people to do is take a screenshot of the last page of your survey and email it to us at insidethebirds@gmail.com, because there's no way, we don't ask for personal information. There's no way to track your name or your personal data on this survey. It's basically an anonymous survey. But if you want to enter to win the contest, we need to at least know your email address and that you took the survey. So you send us a screenshot of the final page of your survey to insidethebirds@gmail.com. We'll take your email address and then that'll get randomly. So one of them will randomly be selected to win a $50 gift card to Fanatics. Cool. So yeah, looking forward to giving that out and getting a lot more surveys in. It's been great so far. We appreciate the great response. All right. So Adam, Eagles week 1. I'm so excited because we had this discussion. We knew it was going to be either the Browns or the Packers to play the Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it is finally announced that it's kind of funny. The dude from the Browns who leaked that he thought it was going to be them and everybody thought it was going to be the Browns, and it turned out to be wrong. It's going to be the Packers. Yeah. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So Mark Murphy, the president of the Packers, for those of you who are old enough, again, if you might remember, was a tall safety for the then Redskins in the 80s. So Murphy said, not so fast, because everyone was wondering, was it going to be the Browns? He said, he told us at the owners' meetings a couple of weeks ago that the league said that they would let them know before the draft whether it be them or the Packers, or them or the Browns. And here, just like he said, here you go. It's going to be the Packers. No offense to the Browns at all, but I'd rather see the Packers because in week 1, if it's going to be the first game, the Packers, who we're going to talk about briefly here, probably the best group, the aggregate total of receiver tight ends in the National Football League, best young group. They're the only NFL team last season to not have a vested veteran at receiver and tight end, who a lot of people thought was around the league thought that was crazy that Brian Gutekunst, their GM, did to have so many young players and not have a veteran for Jordan Love. But guess what? It worked. Jordan Love was not the problem. The problem was the defense. They fired Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator. But Jordan Love had a breakout season, 36 combined touchdowns, 32 passing. No quarterback in the NFL had a better season, second half of last season than him. Based on the tape, he was phenomenal. Their offensive line has issues. They'll address it in the draft, but they're a fun young team to watch. And the Eagles aren't very good in the secondary, so we'll see what the Eagles do. And as I mentioned, the defense is bad. Jeff Hafley, their former Boston College head coach, decided to come back to the NFL, and he's going to run a 43 defense. They used to run Fangio there, and they're not going to be running that anymore. His version of Fangio that Joe Barry ran. So it's going to look different. They're probably going to run some wide nine. We'll have more intel for you closer to the game, obviously in August. But I'm glad you mentioned this game because I love watching the Packers offense. They are fun to watch, and Jordan Love was phenomenal the second half.
Yeah, you can argue that there was no quarterback that played better over the last 8 games. I mean, maybe outside of Patrick Mahomes. No, you know what? Even he did not play great statistically
I know.
over the last 8 games. I think Jordan Love probably played the best as far as that. So I agree with you. It's no offense to the Cleveland Browns. They had a really nice year last year. They were an exciting story, what they did with Joe Flacco, but I wanted to see the Eagles play an NFC team. I was glad it's the Packers. I think it's an exciting game, and I think it's a great first test for this Eagles defense that we expect to continue to be remade in the offseason. And look, I mean, I wrote this on the website. These were 2 teams that at the end of last season were going in opposite directions. The Packers going up. They had a huge upset over the I mean, they waxed the Cowboys. What was it, like 48 to 24? I mean, that game was never even close.
I mean,
Jordan Love looked like the next Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
they're coming. The Packers are coming, and in a very uncharacteristic way, the Packers spent in free agency. They normally are not a team that does that, but they brought in Xavier McKinney, they brought in Josh Jacobs, so those were 2 good additions. And hey, look, the Eagles, we know what they've done. They brought in Saquon Barkley, they brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They're trying to erase the past. The Packers are trying to build on it, and I don't think you could ask for a better sort of opener featuring some great young talent on the field between both teams. So I'm really excited.
On that Friday night, week 1, it's going to be weird. What are your thoughts on a game on Friday night?
It's going to be weird. I think that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I don't know how. I'd rather it be Thursday night. I don't know. I mean, the youngins probably don't want their Friday night to be given up. You know, us old folks like to go out Saturday night. But anyway.
Well, I feel like the NFL has always been very respectful, surprisingly, because they usually just get as much money as they can. But they've always seemingly respected the institution of Friday night football, which is huge in Texas and huge in California, huge in Pennsylvania, huge in Ohio. So you haven't seen a whole lot of Friday night football, even though theoretically the NFL could do it at the snap of a finger and probably profit from it. But they've always seemed to be respectful of it. I think they will continue to be. This is just a unique situation, I imagine. We'll see. We'll see if the door opens for more Friday night football. And but I'm glad you get a good game there, and it's in a conference game, and it's a great test. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. All right, so we'll get into our mocks in a second. Do you think we'll have to deliberate real long on the number 1 overall pick, Adam?
No, we're going to breeze through this very quickly. But where it really gets tough is in the middle area. Like, I'm just warning people, and this is what the way team think is, because when you have a group of players you want, you're hoping for guys to drop, teams to trade up for. Like, you want certain players to drop that you don't want, that other teams might trade up for or would take in front of you, because it's tough picking a 22, but we'll see who's there.
We will. All right, before we get into that, we're going to pause and hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, let's get on with the mock draft. We start at number 1 overall, the Chicago Bears. A lot of guesswork here, Adam. Do you want to go through all the needs that the Bears have?
Yeah, so they kind of profited off of last year's trade with the Panthers, so their needs aren't as many as last year, but they have plenty. It's obviously quarterback. They don't have their future starter. In fact, you could argue if you go through every draft over the last 40 years, they have not had their franchise quarterback since Jim McMahon. And you could debate whether he was a true franchise quarterback, but they got the Super Bowl with him. They won it in 1985 with Buddy Ryan as the defense coordinator. But it's quarterback, it's edge rusher. They have one guy. It's Montez Sweat, who they traded for. D tackle's a problem. They don't have a starter. Receiver, they could use one more. Remember, the draft is about the future. They could use another guard and a safety, but it's going to be Caleb Williams here, and we don't not much to say. It's Caleb Williams for our draft here. He fills that need of a franchise quarterback.
Yep, he absolutely does. And they, as you mentioned, have the other first round pick at 9th overall to be able to add to that other areas of need. So that would bring us with Caleb Williams off the board to number 2, Washington, another team, Adam, that's going to take a quarterback. It would shock me if they did not.
Yep, quarterback 1, edge rusher 2, because remember they traded Sweat, they traded Chase Young. They don't have anybody, so they know that they have to do something at edge rusher. They need a left tackle. They cut Charles, not Jay Leno. They need a guard. They need a corner. Still need a corner. We'll see how Forbes does for them with the new coaching staff with Dan Quinn. And they need a safety, but they're going with Jaden Daniels, who some teams I've talked to have Daniels over Williams on their board in terms of if you were grading the position. Some teams like Daniels more than Caleb Williams, but it doesn't matter for this purpose of the draft. We're going Jaden Daniels here, who will go to the Commanders.
Yeah, and like you said, it really doesn't matter because we're just looking at that position likely to go here, and we know a quarterback is going to go 2.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll go Jaden Daniels to the Commanders. Brings us to here, basically where the draft sort of gets really interesting and intriguing with the New England Patriots at number 3, because the feeling, Adam, is that the Patriots are either going to stay here and make a pick, or they're going to trade this pick and someone's going to take a quarterback. So either way, a quarterback could get taken, or maybe, given the Patriots' needs, right, there's a different position that might go off the board here, but I kind of doubt that.
Yeah, so in my first mock draft at ProFootballNetwork.com, I actually, now again, when you're doing it in January, you're not, even though they were done playing, you're still not fully vested in what all their needs were. But it's still a need. Left tackle is a major need for them. I mean, they were not bringing back Trent Brown, and they need a left tackle. They don't have one. So that's arguably one of the top 2 positions in football. It's usually quarterback, left tackle, right defensive end. Like Gil Brandt told me that when I first started covering the league, he broke down the way he saw it. And those are the 2 most important positions in football they need. They need a left tackle. They need a quarterback. They missed a Mac Jones. They badly need a number 1 receiver. They don't have one. They got a bunch of number 3s. They need a tight end for the future, and they need a guard. But for the purposes of this mock, we're going to go with Drake May. I know he's somewhat controversial, but they need to get a franchise quarterback, and he's very gifted. Journeyman quarterback Alex Van Pelt will coach him, who was formerly of the Browns as their offense coordinator.
And again, I think this fits with our idea of just trying to figure out the players that are going to go off the board at certain slots. Even if the Patriots don't pick here, Adam, it's because like the Vikings packaged 2 first-round picks and moved up there, and they're going to take a quarterback. I mean, I think maybe the only other player besides a quarterback in this spot is if the Patriots stay and decide to take Marvin Harrison Jr. That would be the only. You mentioned the end. I don't know if, I mean, maybe if Bill Belichick was still running the draft, it would be an OT. I'm sorry, you mentioned left tackle.
Left tackle. I didn't mention.
Yeah, not the end. I meant left tackle. Maybe if Bill Belichick were still the coach, but it's, they've got a new regime here. Elliot Wolf is basically calling the personnel shots. He comes from the Green Bay school. Green Bay school is, you need a quarterback, you get a quarterback though. So I like going Drake May here.
All right, let's go to the Cardinals, number 4. This is fascinating. Okay, this is fascinating with the Cardinals at 4 because they need everything. They're an awful team. They have the worst roster in the National Football League. Nobody's close. It's a really bad team. So the question is, do they go with the highest graded player on the board, who should be Marvin Harrison? Do they trade out for a team like you mentioned, the Vikings, who need a quarterback? Now, I had a receivers coach tell me that he goes, don't be stunned if Neighbors goes ahead of Harrison Jr. He goes, I personally have Harrison over him. Have him higher as a higher graded player. But I guess this guy talks to other coaches around the league. He goes, some guys like Neighbors better. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. But for the purposes of the draft, we're going with the best player on the board. It's again, best player on the board at position of need. The Cardinals have needs on both sides of the football, which are numerous, but we're going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., who might wind up being better than his dad, who's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, he might. And by the way, I think you hit it on the head. Every draft cycle, there's like a guy who enters like at the end of the season. He's like the number one guy at his position. He's great. He's going to be a top 5 pick. There's no question about it. And then the draft cycle happens, and all of a sudden, some other guy is the flavor of the week, and then now you're doubting whether the original guy is really going to go where he's projected. And then the draft happens, and then that guy who was sort of the forgotten guy goes right back to being the top 5. But that's how I see Marvin Harrison Jr. now. It was always Marvin Harrison Jr. Then now it's Malik Neighbors. Some people even Rome Odunze. I'm with you. I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the first wide receiver taken, and the Cardinals would be hitting a home run if they got him there at 4.
They're on a starting receiver right now. So yeah, they need corner, edge rusher, guard, defensive tackle.
Who did they beat the Eagles with? Who's the guy who caught the touchdown that I never heard? Michael Wilson?
Yeah, who'd missed out of Stanford, who'd missed a lot of time with a shoulder injury. He should be right now. He'd be a default starter because they don't have anyone else. If they have their druthers, he'd be their 3.
Right.
So that's a good pick there. So let's go to the Chargers at number 5. I debated this one because they have so many needs. Edge rusher for the future. Remember, the draft's about the future. They need corners. They're not taking a running back. There's no running backs going in the first round, maybe not even the second round. They need receiver. They need off the ball linebacker, D tackle, new coaching staff, new schemes. But the best player on the board, I'm going to take him over the edge rusher. I'm going to take him over Turner. I'm going to take Malik Neighbors for us here with the Chargers. And I know they're going to run the hell out of football, but they don't right now. Quentin Johnson, who they're inheriting, is not good enough. You got to get Malik Neighbors here, who's an absolute stud.
Yeah, look, I mean, the person running the draft for the Chargers now is Joe Hortiz. Hortiz? Is it Hortiz?
Joe Hortiz is fact.
Hortiz.
Joe Hortiz grew up in Northeast Philly. His family from Albany, believe it or not.
So he came from the Ravens chain, and even the Ravens owner, Steve Bisciotti, is from Philly. Interesting. So Hortiz comes from the Ravens chain, and one thing we've seen about the Ravens is they are very best player available, and they will take any position in the first round. We talked about that last pod. They've literally taken every single position available in the first round, even center and safety. So they go best available, and I imagine they will stick with that. And I agree with you, Adam. Malik Neighbors at that point, especially in a deep offensive line draft, where if they want an offensive lineman, they probably can get a good one in the second round. Like I completely say they lost Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is now with the Jets, so they absolutely need that guy, and Malik Neighbors would make a whole lot of sense.
You know, it's funny. Steve Bisciotti was born in Philly. I actually met him at an owners meeting, and I said, Steve, just a question. Your accent is really Philly based. He goes, I was just there as a kid. I moved away when I was young. I'm like, okay. I just thought it's funny because it is so Philly, but I'd only got a second with him, so I didn't want to like bother. Oh, where were you born? You know, what street were, whatever.
Right.
But, all right. So let's go to number 6, and a team that's in the Eagles division. It's the Giants at 6. They have a bunch of number 3s, 4s, and 5s at receiver. They need a receiver in the worst way, and true X receiver. They need a D tackle. They need a guard, a quarterback for the future.
Maybe
Daniel Jones. They're locked in this season because of his salary. They need a running back. Barkley's gone in a right tackle. Although they're gonna use Jermaine Illuminor for now, and they're gonna wind up missing. In fact, do not be surprised if Evan Neal moves into guard because he just is not good enough. The best player on the board, they don't need a left tackle, would be Joe Alt, but they don't need one. The best player on the board for them is Rome. You mentioned him, Rome Odunze, who is a stud, a great dude. He's a stud ex-receiver, played with the quarterback
with Michael Penix.
Michael Penix, thank you, his name escaped me. Michael Penix, a lefty. So it's going to be Rome Odunze. Finally, if you look at their receiver corps before we move on, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jalen Hyatt, number 3. Darius Slayton, number 3. Wan'Dale Robinson at number 3. Isaiah McKenzie at 5. Isaiah Hodgins at 4 or 5. Yeah, there you go. This is a great pick for them. This really helps them. Roma Dunze at number 6.
Yeah, I mean, if they're fortunate enough to get Roma Dunze, if they're fortunate enough that Darren Waller decides not to retire, and if they can get a good second year out of Jalen Hyatt, then all of a sudden you can start to see the Giants and Daniel Jones, if they fix the offensive line, start to be able to have some playmakers around him. Those were a lot of ifs that I threw out there, though. All right, that brings us to the 7th overall pick. It would be the Tennessee Titans. And man, sometimes you just don't know what a team is going to take, and we never exactly know. But sometimes the marriage, it seems perfect, the fit seems perfect, and if the Titans can get the number 1 offensive lineman in the draft here, which in our mock so far they can, that is such a great addition for them.
So talking to them, like they consider keeping Andre Dillard for a little bit, but they knew they were going to draft this replacement. So it's like, what's the point? So they cut him before he had a guarantee that hit on his contract. So they cut him before they became live. So it's left tackle, edge rusher in the worst way, corner in the worst way. Well, not corner in the worst way anymore. They actually added 2, but they need good backup corners, but they could wait. They could use more receivers and a D tackle, but you're right. You nailed it. Joel, who's arguably the best left tackle, depending on who you're speaking with, but he's the best left tackle in our mock. He's going 7 to the Titans.
There you go. And by the way, the only thing that's sort of, like we really don't have a long history of Rand Carthon picks to really know that this is definitely the guy, or they have a new head coach and Brian Callahan, but it just makes too much sense for the Titans to address that offensive line.
I mean, they have to do it. Their line has been bad for years. I know Cosell loves Fuaga, loves him. Like that would be the surprise. You make the point with Rand Carthon. We don't know. We know his dad, Maurice, was the fullback for the Giants. We know he's with the Niners, but we don't know what his philosophy is and what does he look for in a left tackle. They're going left tackle. That's not the debate. The debate is what kind of body type does he want? We don't know that.
Right.
Fair point. So Joe Alt's the pick there at numero 7. Next up, the Falcons, who might have put together an excellent offense. It's their defense, which was competitive with not a lot of talent last season.
It was, yes. Although they did wind up signing a bunch of guys in free agency to try to upgrade it. But the one thing that they've always missed, especially since Vic Beasley's after Vic Beasley's one good year, is having really good edge rushers. And I
don't have anybody.
Poor Grady Jarrett has literally been out there trying to fight off double teams by himself because he's a really good interior tackle, but he just hasn't had enough support on the edges. And if the Falcons don't go edge here, I mean, I guess they can go corner, but I really think they got to start building from the front to the back. And I wouldn't be, to me, Dallas Turner, Alabama, inside linebacker. Now, Greg Cosell told us that is he the one that's more built to be a 4-3 DN? No, that's Verse. So yeah, Dallas Turner would fit probably what Raheem Morris wants to do there, which is have like a 5-man front.
Yep. They have not had a good edge rusher since Vic Beasley, who had the one good year. In fact, the Titans screwed up when they signed him. Ebiketie, they was a second rounder 2 years ago, but he hasn't broken out yet. Lorenzo Carter, who's not a bad player, is a good third edge rusher. So you're right. And by the way, Grady Jarrett is coming off a significant injury, so they got to help their edge rusher group. And Jarrett obviously is an interior lineman, but anyway, Dallas Turner's the pick. That's an easy call. And now it's number 9 for the Bears.
All right. Well, this will be the Bears' second pick. They took Caleb Williams first. We said they could use pass rushers. Now they got Montez Sweat last year. Better on the interior, but they obviously need more pass rushers, especially because Matt Eberflus is their defensive coordinator. He's a 4-man rush guy.
Yep.
So they need more pass rushers. And I think that this is another perfect marriage. We talked about Jared Verse with Cosell from Florida State. Jared Verse, he is more of a 4-3, hand in the dirt, big body defensive end. He's not a Fangio stand-up outside linebacker, but that's not the defense that Eberflus typically runs. So this is a good match to put Jared Verse from Florida State, big body D end in there.
4-3. He's not doing 34. I mean, yeah. So he's you nailed it. And this is sort of a layup pick because honestly, they can't get out of this draft without significant pieces and edge rusher off Sweat. They don't have anyone to start opposite Sweat. They have a decent young. They got Dexter. It was a D tackle last year. Zach Pickens also last year. So at least they have some young players there at D tackle. But as edge, they got one guy and versus the pick. I totally agree with you. So it's next up the Jets. Do they take the quarterback?
So I don't think the Jets will take a quarterback.
I agree 100%. They're not.
And I
doing it.
do think if the Vikings stay put and don't trade up to with the Patriots to 3, then they're going to want to get a quarterback at 11. So 10 becomes a good ground for the Jets to maybe move down if they want to, if someone
Yep.
wants to usurp the Vikings. But we're not going to go quarterback here.
The reason is simple. The reason is Aaron Rodgers, not only is he playing this season, they believe he there's a very good chance he'll play 2 seasons. Joe Douglas is not in the business of rest, like his first round pick not playing for 2 years potentially. They're not going to quarterback here. It would be the biggest upset of this draft. I just don't see any way Joe would do that. I don't.
I agree. Joe is a build through the trenches guy. And even though he signed Tyron Smith to play left tackle, I think he's smart enough to know you can't guarantee A, that's not your future left tackle, and B, Tyron Smith, if you get 10 games, I know he played 16 games last year, but that was kind of the anomaly. So Olu Fashanu from Penn State makes a ton of sense for the Jets. That's what we're going to go with. They get themselves their left tackle of the future, and chances are Olu will probably have to step in and play at some point. Just the way offensive line play is.
It's either Fuaga or Fashanu. I mean, it's whatever. We don't have access to their board. Now, Fuaga is probably a higher graded player, but man, again, it's either or. That's where they're going here. I don't see anything else that they could possibly go with. Now, if it's not, it's almost certain not to happen, but if somehow Odunze was there at 10, they're taking Odunze. Why? They need someone to protect for the future. They need someone to help out Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams is on a 1-year deal. Come back for torn ACL. Odunze overall should be the highest graded player on their board for any team picking a 10. But again, he's not going to be there for the sake of the draft. So you could take Fuaga. I'll go with it. Fashanu is fine for me. There's your future. There's your franchise left tackle. Good pick for them. They need one badly. They missed him Becton.
100%. And Elijah Veriteca is a good player, but he's also been hurt, and he's more of a right side player than a left side player.
Or right tackle.
Absolutely. Fuaga was the Oregon State kid, right?
Yep.
And they might be able to play him at guard. I think you mentioned that. So you might get some versatility out of him. So that would be good. By the way, if Odunze is available at 10, I mean, I like Jared Verse, but the Bears, what are you doing? Taking
at 9.
Go
back. You mean at 9? If he's available at 9?
Well, if he's available at 10, it means he was available at 9. And if the Bears passed on him to take Verse, they'd be crazy.
I see. Well, yeah, no, what's funny, in one of my mocks for Pro Football Network, I actually had Odunze lasting to 9, but not anymore. As you get closer to the draft, you really hone in on how teams think and where they should go, just in terms of the value.
Right.
Odunze is they're anywhere from 14 to 16 first round grades is what we'll give you those players closer to the draft. But that's my word. I checked on it earlier this week. That's what I have is depending on who you speak with, 14 to 16 players this year.
Right.
And so Fashanu is definitely one of them. Now we go to 11 where, oh boy, do the Vikings go with a quarterback here?
Well, hold that thought because before we get into that, we're going to tell you whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less. HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you'll love, delivered right to your door. You've actually resolved to sit down and eat dinner around the table this year? Well, good luck to you. What do you do when those nights are just jam-packed and your schedule is too much? Well, that's when you turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals. Perfect for draft night, by the way, when you don't want to miss a pick. It includes their 15-minute recipes that are designed to help you minimize that mealtime stress. Every time we eat from HelloFresh, whether it's a quick and easy meal or one of their other types, we're blown away by the freshness, taste, and the overall quality. So many great options. There's chicken, there's steak, there's seafood, vegetarians, so many great deals. And now here's their best deal yet. If you go to HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree, use the code EaglesFree and you'll get free breakfast for life. That's one breakfast item per box while you've got an active subscription. Free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree using the promo code EaglesFree, EAGLESFREE. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, as we get back to our mini mock draft with the 11th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings, Adam. So through 10 picks, 3 quarterbacks, we have 3 receivers, we have 2 edge rushers, and we have 2 linemen. So that's the first 10 picks right there. Interesting, no corners yet, but we'll get to the Minnesota Vikings now.
Yep.
Where do they go? What do they need?
Well, they need a corner, but they need the number one needs quarterback, edge rusher, corner, D tackle, guard, safety. I mean, I've got on JJ McCarthy, I've got two people who I spoke with who gave him a second round grade. One guy gave him a third round grade. And I get all that. I don't doubt that the tape looks like that. You heard what you'll hear what Greg Cosell has to say about the quarterbacks when we do that show coming up. But I've talked probably to 8 or 9 people. I haven't talked to anyone who thinks he should go in the first round. He's going to go in the first round because he's a quarterback. He's going to be severely overdrafted. You and I almost fainted when the Bears traded up when we were doing the draft together in 2017 for the Fanatic in Philly when the Bears traded up. We didn't know who they were trading up for. No one did. When they traded up for Trubisky. And I feel like this is a Trubisky pick here, but he's a quarterback. JJ McCarthy is going to go here to the Vikings.
Now, if it's not JJ McCarthy, but it's still a quarterback, because Kevin O'Connell comes from the McVay tree, could you see them maybe going Bo Nix here?
No, way early.
Way early? Okay.
Done.
Just wondering.
He was really bad at Auburn.
Well, by the way, it's way early for JJ McCarthy based on your
I know, but the thing about McCarthy is the only thing, well, there are two things that are positive. He won a ton of games, national champion, good leadership. I know that's way down in importance. It's about how the guy throws and the attributes. That's all really, those are the top attributes that you're looking for. He's an average thrower of the football, decent size. He really should be a second round pick. Bo Nix, the problem for Bo Nix is you not a good offense at all. You just didn't. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. He's very accurate. His numbers are great once he left Auburn. But it's hard to imagine he will go this early. It's a fair question. I just don't see it. Honestly, if Penix didn't have the injury issues, it would be a great pick for the Vikings. But 2 ACLs, right ACL twice, 2 major shoulder injuries. He's not going early. He's going to have a very bad medical grade to go in the first round. Everyone I've talked to is the second round on Penix, just for the record. But we're going to go with McCarthy here.
Right.
We wish him good luck. I just feel like this is Mitch Trubisky all over again, who went second overall. Didn't he go second overall in 17?
Mitchell Trubisky did. Yes. Yeah. They traded up. Remember, they gave up a lot to get.
Yeah. That's why we both said, no, remember there was a hush over the crowd in Philly. We're like, what do they do? Who are they trading up for?
Yeah.
But they did make the playoffs the second year with him. So anyway.
They did. That was more Vic Fangio on that defense than it was Khalil Mack.
Probably.
And
Khalil Mack, right. By the way, the Raiders didn't think much of the Bears. That's why they traded with them. And they got good compensation, but they didn't think the Bears would be any good. And oh well.
There you go. All right. And to remember, this could be the Patriots picking at 11 if they do wind up trading with the Vikings for that 3rd overall pick that we talked about.
Okay.
All right. So then we get to pick 12. It is the Denver Broncos. And man, they could go a lot of different places because what they need may not really match with what's the best talent on the board at that point.
Well, they're not getting a quarterback. Based on our mock, I mean, could McCarthy drop to 12? Sure. Their number one need is quarterback for the future. They need D tackle, they need a corner opposite Surtain. They definitely need to start a quarter. Their safety, edge badly. In fact, I probably should move edge up higher. Don't see an edge rusher going there because there's just no value for it. Could use running back depth and a tight end because the kid that they drafted a couple years ago keeps getting hurt with a hamstring. But the corner to me is the best player on the board, and Quinion Mitchell is going to be the pick. He's really good, and this doesn't help the Eagles or any team looking for a corner, but we could see a quarterback run here, folks.
We could be. Like I've always said, once that first one goes, you start to see the run. Now, I do wonder, I don't know, because it's Sean Payton, but does Brock Bowers become somebody that really tantalizes Payton? I mean, the guy fell in love with Taysom Hill, and Brock Bowers is a heck of an athlete. I don't know if he can throw a football, but he is a heck of an athlete.
Well, see, Dulcich keeps getting hurt. He's missed a ton of time his first 2 years with a hamstring. Sean wasn't there when he was drafted. He brought his guy Adam Troutman here, who they traded for from the Saints. But man, they need to get tight end right. But corner's a more value position. That's a good one. I hadn't thought about Bowers. That look, you're right. And Sean's got a lot of same personnel, but it would be Quinion Mitchell. Next up, the Raiders at 13.
All right, Raiders. What are their needs, Adam? Besides literally every single position.
Quarterback, quarterback for the future. Corner, opposite Nate Hobbs, so or Hobbs could play inside, but they need a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Guard, D tackle, right tackle, running back for the future, and defensive. They need edge rusher opposite Max Crosby. There is no quarterback here unless they're a team that certainly, I know for a fact they're looking to trade up. They're looking hard into it. This is the time of year where the trade calls made, folks. 2 to 4 weeks before the draft, teams call we might as well tell you, every team talks to every team. They figure out scenarios, so there's no screw ups when they're on the clock. They've got this all figured out closer to the draft. They know if their guy, because they know if their guy drops, they want to be able to trade up for him. So this is all figured out. So as we go along here, so at 13, if the Raiders don't trade up for a quarterback, it's corner. It's Terrion Arnold, folks. We told you, and they need a corner in a big way. It's going to be Terrion Arnold.
I feel like every 3 years the Raiders are trying to draft corners in the first round. So hopefully this one will work out for them. I would keep my eye on the other corner, Nate Wiggins from Clemson, right?
Yep.
Only because the Raiders seem to stay true to form, even with different GMs and different head coaches. They draft speed, and Nate Wiggins is the fastest corner in the draft. And can I drop my little my hammer that I dropped in the live stream here just to keep an eye on?
Okay.
Based on that, this might be the first potential spot for Xavier Worthy based on his speed.
I would say it won't be because of the GM that is Tom Telesco. That's not his type of player.
Agreed.
He likes receivers with size. He drafted Quentin Johnston last year, and they've done
fair.
that. Like when I put that note out on that they were going to draft Ruggs, it's because I knew I had a pretty good idea they were drafting for speed, and that was the fastest speed guy. They actually have Trey Tucker from Cincinnati, could absolutely fly, who in limited time did really well, but corner's got to be it, and it's going to be Terrion Arnold. Here we go with the cornerback run. Told you.
All right, that's 2 corners in a row. We told you that's what happens, and that brings us to New Orleans Saints, who are in total damage control with this pick because a couple of years ago they made a trade with the Eagles to go get their left tackle of the future.
Oh, was that when they did it?
Yeah.
Oh man, Penning got benched. Trevor Penning. They see. Here's the key. So let's get to the Saints at 14. Cam Jordan's up there at 35 years old, so they need to eventually get his replacement. They could use another edge rusher. They could use a safety, a receiver. They cut Michael Thomas. D tackle, guard, quarterback of the future. This is the last year of guaranteed money for Derek Carr. They're stuck with him this season. Guard and left tackle. Now, that's the problem. Now, Fuaga is a great value here to us. Maybe they move Penning to right tackle, or although Ramchek's there, or maybe they move him inside to left guard.
Wasn't Ramchek having some trouble with his injury?
Yeah, that's right. He had surgery. Yeah, and they're not totally sure he'll be ready for training camp. That's a good point. So let's go with the best player here, Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State.
Yeah, that would be a very, very good pick from the Saints.
Great value. Yep.
Way better than the last left tackle that they tried to draft. I agree. All right, that brings us to 15th overall, the Indianapolis Colts, who had a very impressive season last year, despite Anthony Richardson getting hurt. He'll be back, you hope. Got to think defense is where they're looking at, although they could also use a wide receiver, but they have bigger needs on defense.
Yeah, the Richardson's will be fine for the spring, but the issue is at receiver. Opposite Michael Pittman, it didn't work out for Alex Pierce as a starter, so a receiver is a big need for them. So it's edge rusher, corner, guard, and safety. There are no edge rushers here. Receiver is a good question. Is there to me?
I mean, Brian Thomas could be a guy
this is where that's a good one. I would say this is where the conversation would start for Brian Thomas. I agree with you. It's a little bit early. I got him going late one. Too early for Worthy. So the best player on the board, you mentioned him, unfortunately for the Eagles, or any team that's looking for a corner, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson.
Yeah, you know what? I as we do this, I'm starting to see, Adam, that as soon as that first corner goes, and you and I both are of the belief that Quinion Mitchell, and we've known this since the Senior Bowl, is going to be the apple of a lot of teams' eyes, and he's going to go high.
He's the guy.
So he goes top 15. That's going to trigger that run. Like we said, we had the Raiders taking Terrion Arnold, and now the Colts getting Wiggins, who I agree with you. I think that you just look at it and see how he tested and see his tape. He can be just as good. In fact, some teams have Wiggins as good as Terrion Arnold, if not better. So These guys are going to go, and the run has started, and that's 3 corners already off the board, which brings us to the Seahawks at 16th overall. They have a lot of different needs too, but again, I think the value is going to wind up being where they go as opposed to the need.
Yep. Quarterback, there's no quarterback. Off the ball linebacker, you're not drafting one there. John Schneider, the GM, now has full personnel control. Safety, guard, edge rusher. D tackle's a major need. And center. I was told at the Senior Bowl that Byron Murphy would absolutely go in the first round, that the media didn't know much about him. Well, that guy I spoke with is going to be right. He's definitely going in the first round. In fact, I don't think he'll make it past the Seahawks. They're very weak at D tackle. He is our pick for the Seahawks out of Texas, by the way. Texas has got a lot of players for the draft this year.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. Well, they were pretty good this year, made the Final Four. All right. So that would be the first defensive tackle taken so far is 16. That's an atypical draft. Usually you see DTs go in the top 5, top 6, but he will be the first one off the board at 16 to the Seahawks. Brings us to the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the true wild cards every year in the draft because they just sort of make some interesting picks.
Well, on that, see if it was anyone but Trent Baalke. Because Trent Baalke, talking to guys that work with him, he wants length. So it's not going to be Xavier Worthy. If it was anyone else, I go, this is where you start talking about Worthy. Because remember, they did not get Calvin Ridley back. They wanted him badly, and he went to the division rival Titans. Right. So they're not going to be able to get him. Now Brian Thomas is going to be a discussion. He's going to be a discussion here. But they are really bad at corner. They've got one guy who's good, and he was hurt a ton last season. That's Tyson Campbell. In fact, things are so bad, it's going to have to be an old friend, Ronald Darby right now. If they don't get anyone, it's Ronald Darby, who's 30. He's had a ton of injuries. That's all they have. They signed this year. So the last corner out of this tier is Kool-Aid McKinstry, and that's who it's going to be.
Good stuff. Kool-Aid McKinstry. And that would be now the 4th corner off the draft, off the board by 17.
We warned you.
Overall.
We warned you, folks. It's
100%.
a tough deal, man. I know he's coming off the injury, but he's going to be fine.
Yep. So if you're looking for the Eagles to move up, by the way, the hot spot is 14 Saints because the Colts we have taking a corner and the Jaguars we have taken a corner. So that might be an area how he might feel like he has to jump up from 22 to 14 if he wants to get his guy.
All right, 18. This makes so much sense. They failed. Okay, we're at the Bengals at 18.
Yep.
They need a tight end in the worst way. Guard, running back to replace Joe Mixon. I know Zach Moss is there, but he's a marginal starter. Receiver, depth, and particularly because Wiggins isn't signed past this season. In fact, he's on the franchise tag. He hasn't signed it. Corner and D tackle. There are no corners that they would take. How do you pass up Brock Bowers if you have an unbelievable quarterback in Joe Burrow? Come on, they need a tight end.
I love it. I love what you're saying. The Bengals don't always do the thing that we find is the normal thing to do.
John Ross.
Yes, there's one name, Billy Davis. There's one name that creeps into my mind that I think would shock everybody. But if you imagine it, especially with Tyler Boyd situation, right? Is Tyler Boyd signed yet? I forget.
No, I don't understand.
That is weird, but I think Ladd McConkey would be a sleeper to watch. Where you put Ladd McConkey with right now, T. Higgins is on the team and Jamar Chase. You work that inside. That would be
way early.
Joe Burrow would be. Oh no, trust me, I know that's early.
Yeah,
but I'm just again, this is the Bengals we're talking about, so.
Yeah. Well, let's put this. I should say this. So he could certainly go in as early as the second round, but I don't see it.
Yep.
I see Brock Bowers being that guy.
Okay.
Cooper DeJean makes some sense for them for the future at safety because he could play corner as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go with Brock Bowers, who people think is a absolute superstar potential. Wow. If they get him for fantasy, how good would Joe Burrow be if he could stay healthy?
I think it would be fantastic.
Yep.
That would be great.
All right. Definitely. 19 Cooper DeJean here, maybe, but we'll talk about him in a second. So the needs are Aaron Donald retired. They need another D tackle big time, but there's not one who would probably go here, who would be a value. Edge rusher, corner, quarterback for the future with Stafford getting up there. Still played well last season. Safety, running back, and offensive tackle. See, this is where safety is not a big need. Now, here's the question. We know Cooper DeJean could play slot corner, outside corner, safety. Even played a little bit of linebacker in college. He could return punts. This guy's the best player on the board.
So what you're telling me is Cooper DeJean can play a star role in the secondary, which is what the Rams went and got Jalen Ramsey for a few years ago and wound up winning a Super Bowl. So love the idea, love the concept, fits, works. There's no team that uses its personnel better than the Rams right now, with Sean McVay really leading the charge there, whether it's offense or defense. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And it almost seems to make too much sense. So yeah, Cooper DeJean to the Rams would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, the only other choices would be Jason. They need a left tackle for the really in a bad way. They need a left tackle. So Latham's there. Mims are other considerations, but
did they not sign their left tackle though to a kind of a deal that was it Noteboom?
They missed badly. Yeah, he got hurt. He had an ACL years ago, and he actually got benched. He actually got moved to guard. Now they filled out. They paid Kevin Dotson handsomely, and then Jonah Jackson they brought over. So Noteboom.
So Noteboom has to play tackle because they have Avila
right, but he's not a starter. He got benched. Yeah, he got benched. So
wow, okay.
They just went up missing on him.
Okay.
So you got to think about that. But we're going to go with DeJean here because he's the best player. Then number 20 to the Steelers. They need a receiver. They're really light there. Remember, they traded Johnson to the Panthers.
Yep.
They need receiver in the worst way. They need a left tackle. Well, they need a tackle.
Right.
They
need a tackle.
corner.
They also need a center. So the
Yep.
Jackson Powers kid would be a kind of a sleeper. I don't know if he's going to go
early
first round.
Yeah.
But if there is a team that's going to draft a center in the first round, it would be the Steelers. That fits their identity. But I agree with you. A good tackle to put across from Broderick Jones, who's going to play left tackle. Amarius Mims, obviously, tremendous amount of talent.
You know what?
What?
We didn't put. Let me ask you this question: we didn't put Latham anywhere, right?
I would probably have put Latham here, or
let's put Latham. Let's
put Tyler Guyton, but yeah, over Mims, just because.
Let's put Latham. You're right.
Okay.
Latham's the highest graded player on the board. We're going to go Latham here, who could play guard if needed. He's played it before. He said he's more than open to it. So we'll go with Latham here to the Steelers at 20.
Right. And that brings us to another team that needs offensive line help, the Miami Dolphins. So they could go Amarius Mims at 21. They could go Tyler Guyton.
Yep.
The question is, does Mike McDaniel feel the same way about offensive linemen that his mentor does, which is Shanahan, which is I don't need the best pass protectors. I need the most athletic guys to run my wide zone offensive system. And if that case, you're looking at athletes, right? Then Mims, even with the lack of experience, would be perfect, or even a Tyler Guyton there, Adam. Just guys.
So, yep. I take the best left. Toronto Armstead took a small pay cut. He's had a ton of injuries. I'm taking Amarius Mims here from Georgia, who's like you should hear Cosell if you guys haven't heard that show. But Greg's like, he knows he's raw, but man, Greg was pretty effusive in his praise for him. So he's going to go here to the Dolphins, and then it's now the Eagles. Unfortunately, corner's their biggest need by far. Gone. Edge rusher's a possibility. They need off the ball linebacker, not drafting one here. Guard, safety. Where are you going here?
Well, before I'm going anywhere to make this pick, the first thing I'm doing is going to see my friends at Sky Motor Cars. Let's hear a word from them right now.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, and if you stop in at Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You'll get a great deal. And in fact, whoever the Eagles take here at 22 could be stopping in at Sky Motor Cars, much like Avonte Maddox has, much like who else? Landon Dickerson has, much like other players in the past have to get a car from Sky Motor Cars. 22 is tough here, Adam, because I don't see maybe corner, Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri. I don't know if that's where they want to go.
Not run well enough.
22, yeah. I mean, it's not floating my boat right now. So they've kind of missed out on the best corners. So to me, you're looking at either pass rusher or offensive line. Pass
All right.
rusher, right? What are we? Chop Robinson's available.
Well, the best player by far should have won earlier, but medical, Leatu is still on the board, and he would obviously be the Eagles' pick here.
Mm,
But we don't know where they're at from a medical standpoint. We
right.
know that there's a possibility he drops out of the first round. It's just simply how teams view the medical. You
Mhm.
only need one team to say we're okay. He had the neck problem, which caused him to not get clear to play. Was it University of Washington? Is that where he was?
Yes, Washington would not play him,
Right.
would not medically clear him, so he
Right.
transferred then to UCLA and played.
Right. So to me, the obvious pick would be Leatu. We'll check in to see where the Eagles and other teams are.
Most refined pass rusher of all of the pass rushers in this
Best
draft.
hand usage,
Best
yeah,
hand
no doubt.
usage.
So so let's see. If it's not Leatu, is there anyone else who could? Darius Robinson. See, Darius Robinson is a tweener. He'd fit this scheme. He
Mhm.
would be exactly what Fangio wants. This is where the conversation starts because he could play 5 technique.
Yeah, he'd be like what they had an Akeem Hicks in Chicago if he were that good.
He's
You know?
long. This kid's
Yeah.
definitely go in the first round. He'll go in the 20s.
Mhm.
Braswell, I don't think he goes in the first round. Chop Robinson, I mean, you could see it
I
because
could
he's
see
an
it. Yep.
athlete. You know, you could talk about it. He's
How about Troy Fautanu, who can play guard? Is it Troy? Yeah, Fautanu, right? The Washington.
Patano. Yep.
Yeah, who could play tackle or guard. He projects to be a pretty good guard who can then play tackle.
Patano to me is the best player on the board. Okay. Well, let's put it
I
this
would
way.
agree.
Leatu is, but medical is the problem. There's no issue here with Fatano. He could play guard or he could play right tackle. You don't need a right tackle right now, but they will in a couple years when Lane Johnson retires. So yeah, I like it. Fatano there. I know it's boring, but don't you trust the Eagles with offensive linemen? I mean, I know they missed on the kid in 2019 who the Titans cut,
Andre Dillard,
but they haven't missed on many.
Nope.
And you got to trust them with Fatano. I like this pick. Good call.
I like it. I agree with you. He'd be the best player on the board. I would say he's probably more pro ready and maybe would make a better immediate impact than an Amarius Mims or a Tyler Guy who lack experience. But again, the draft is for many years down the road, and those guys might develop into monsters. Fatano will just give you exactly what you need at that position, and then maybe move out to tackle in the future. So you're right. Not the sexiest pick, but certainly a smart pick and something that would be very likely for the Eagles there if that were.
And what I would add though is that so that makes Tyler Steen then your top backup offensive lineman because we know he could play left tackle. He played in college. He got cross-trained at right guard last season. So there you go. And it may make them think as we finish this out that they don't have to add another lineman, a veteran on the street. If it played out like we have for this mock draft. So there you go. We just wanted you to have an idea because it crossed my mind when I was updating my latest mock for ProFootballNetwork.com that I just don't see a corner being there for the Eagles. I mean, unless there's something we don't know. Sometimes stuff happens where, gosh, I didn't think that guy would drop,
Right.
But I don't. I mean, is Kool-Aid McKinstry going to drop there? And we have no idea if they like him or not.
Yeah, no, he's the only name I really haven't heard a whole lot of buzz with the Eagles with, so we'd have to look into that. But if there's one guy, Adam, real quick, we'll end it on this. If there's one guy that they make a move 5 or 6 spots up for, who do you think it is?
I would say any corner that drops that they like. Mitchell's not going to get there.
Yeah, he's not going to get there.
Wiggins,
Nick Wiggins to me is the guy.
Terrion Arnold would be a guy because he's going to be higher grade. He's going to have a high grade now. Here's one for you. What if Fuaga? I'm just thinking out loud here. They need if they're going to draft a lineman, the guy's got to play guard first because they're not letting this guy not play year one. The guy's got to be able to play guard. But Fuaga is so good because if the Saints shock us by thinking Trevor Penning still's the answer, I can't imagine he is. But if they do, then they're not taking Fuaga.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm Howie. Do I want to give up a pick to move up to get Fuaga? If I do think I can get a really good Fautanu at 22, it's a good question.
But Fuaga is got a much.
Yeah. I get you. All right, man. That's gonna do it. This was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a great idea that Adam had. I'm glad we could help everybody out, including ourselves, and get an idea of what the draft picture might look like at 22. That's gonna do it for this episode of Inside the Birds. the leading podcast in the Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.